أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. تقبل الله أعمالنا وأعمالكم. Carrying on with our topic of an overview of Nahj al-Balaghah, we finished off in our last session speaking about the content of Nahj al-Balaghah and the primary sources of Nahj al-Balaghah. And we said that although Al-Sharif al-Radhi, Sayyid al-Radhi, the compiler of Nahj al-Balaghah, did a fascinating job in compiling this very valuable book. But it wasn't only him who put effort in bringing together the collection of sermons or letters or sayings of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And this is very important for us to know, because when we want to speak about tonight's topic, which is the authenticity of Nahj al-Balaghah, it is necessary for us to stress on the point that this is not something that spontaneously came out of nowhere. And we can see this to be one of the primary objectives that our early ulama had, preserving the heritage of the Shi'i faith. And if you remember, I spoke about the burning of libraries and some of the devastating things that occurred. In addition to that, unfortunately, the persecution, the ongoing persecution against the Shia of Ahlul Bayt in each and every era of that time. So the only sensible thing that needs to be done, that needed to be done, was to preserve this heritage. And that's why our ulama spent a lot of time and effort engaging in this. The question is, when it comes to Nahj al-Balaghah, is it all authentic from cover to cover? Now, we use the word from cover to cover because this is a very common expression used in reference to Sahih al-Bukhari. As you know, there are 6 primary hadith compilations in the Sunni world. And there are 4 primary hadith compilations in the Shi'i world. You've got Al-Kafi, Al-Faqih, Man La Yahdharuhu Al-Faqih, Al-Tahdhib, and Al-Istibsar by Al-Shaykh Al-Kulayni, Al-Shaykh Al-Saduq, and Al-Shaykh Al-Tusi. And then you have the Sihah al-Sit, the 6 authentic books, Bukhari, Muslim, Sunan Ibn Dawood, Sunan al-Nasa'i, Musnad, Ibn Hanbal and Ibn Majah, etc., etc. Right? So they say that although we refer to them as as-Sihah as-Sit, but the only one that has the highest level of authenticity, which is Sahih, min al-Jildi ila al-Jild, which means authentic from cover to cover, is al-Bukhari. And they say that al-Bukhari is asahhu kitab ba'da kitabillah, the most authentic book after the Holy Quran. Of course, when it comes to our understanding of this, we definitely disagree as far as usuli Shia um, belief is concerned. We definitely disagree with this, and we say that the only authentic book that is authentic from cover to cover, that has absolutely no blemish or criticism or addition or anything taken away, is the Holy Quran. Other than that, everything else can be subjected to criticism, critical criticism, not personal criticism. Yani just because you don't like something written in Al-Kafi or in this does not necessarily mean that you have the right to criticize it. When we say criticism here, we're talking about criticism according to the standards uh, and process given, laid out in the methodology presented by our ulama in ilm al-hadith, in dirayatul hadith, in ilm al-rijal. Now, with the issue of al-Bukhari, for us, we find it very difficult to say that everything in al-Bukhari is authentic, especially if there are things that not only bring about many doubts and questions as far as the fundamentals of our religion, like Tawheed, but also there are things that are there that seem to be, if we were to look at them in on face value, extremely insulting to the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. And that's why we, of course, need to enter into this topic with critical eyes, making sure that we don't take things purely on the level of its sacredness and qadasa. Everyone loves Nahj al-Balaghah, but but if someone was to say to you, who is an expert, who is qualified, that I have certain questions in regards to the authenticity of this particular khutbah or parts of this particular khutbah. And he presents his arguments and evidence. And someone else says, no. Someone else who's an expert says, no, I disagree. I think it is as authentic as can be. Let me give an example to be more practical. One of the um, early sermons that are mentioned is Khutbatul Shaqshaqiyya. And I will be speaking about Khutbatul Shaqshaqiyya because it's a very important khutbah, but it makes a direct reference to the first Khalifa. And of course, the tone that is used by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is a harsh tone. لَقَدْ تَقَمَّصَهَا ibn Abi Qahafa, in reference to Abu Bakr. Taqammasa is in reference to wearing a qamis. Qamis, you know what qamis means? Wearing a qamis that does not fit you. Taqammasa means Abu Bakr is wearing something, yani he's talking about the Khilafah, is wearing something that doesn't even fit him. Okay, a beautiful khutbah, a beautiful khutbah speaking about the status of Imam Ali alayhi salam and speaking about the difficulties that he faced and the challenges that he had in regards to the Saqifa of Bani Sa'ida. Okay, some ulama say that no, this is not the style of Imam Ali, and therefore I find it problematic to attribute this khutbah to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Okay, that's your opinion. There shouldn't be for example, qiyamah just because there is one alim who says, for example, something in this particular way, or another alim says that no, it is all like that. There are views attributed to some of our ulama that all of Nahj al-Balaghah is authentic. So, in reference to the first point, right? In reference to the first point, there are some scholars that say all of Nahj al-Balaghah is authentic from cover to cover, similar to al-Bukhari. This is not the common mainstream view. The second is that none of it is authentic and it's just misconstrued, mixed up information, and it cannot be attributed to Imam Ali. None of our Shia ulama have this view, but there are many Sunni ulama who adopt this opinion. Of course, the major issue and problem is that because Nahjul Balagha has become so famous, unfortunately, some people do not know that it was not Imam Ali alayhi salam who wrote this book. It was not Imam Ali who wrote this book. They assume that it was written by Imam Ali. Okay, if you have wrong information, that's not my fault, right? Whether they be Shia or whether they be Sunni, and they have this wrong assumption that it was written by Imam Ali, we have to inform them that no, this is a book compiled by a 4th century scholar by the name of Sayyid al-Radhi. Simple as that. A third view is that in its entirety, it can't be authentic from cover to cover, but as a source of reference, it is definitely a reliable source of reference, where in its in the majority of it, it can be graded as sahih and authentic. So should you want to make reference to Nahjul Balagha, you should not be worried or concerned that you might be doing something wrong, unless there is something clearly mentioned that goes against the principles of your aqidah as a Shi'i. And I will be mentioning this tomorrow when I speak about the different editions of Nahjul Balagha. One edition of Nahjul Balagha, what is by the famous Sunni Egyptian scholar who was the Mufti of Egypt by the name of Muhammad Abduh. And Muhammad Abduh, unfortunately, either by mistake or not, some passages of Nahj al-Balagha was censored. I'll be giving the examples in detail tomorrow, inshallah. But we say that because these passages that do exist in that edition are against our aqidah, and therefore we're not going to accept it. So, are parts of it authentic? Definitely parts of it are authentic. Now, how important is it for us to look into the authenticity of absolutely everything in Nahjul Balagha? We need to always remember that when it comes to the grading of hadith, when it comes to looking at the content and the chain of hadith, there are areas where we can be flexible and lenient, and there are areas where we can never be flexible or lenient. What's an example of never being flexible or lenient? What our ulama go through in matters of fiqh, matters of halal and haram. It's no joke. You can't say, oh, this, oh, maybe, or I'm relying on a da'if, on a weak narration. These are issues to do with my ibadah. These are issues to do with my me either ending up in heaven or in hell. So there's no compromising. And this is where, when it comes to, for example, a hadith, it cannot be graded as sahih, it cannot be graded as authentic if each and every person in the chain of narrators are reliable Ithna Asharis. If they're non-Ithna Asharis, it will not have the same grading. If they are non-Shia, it will not have the same grading. Oh, that's important, isn't it? What about something else that is not fiqhi related? What about something else that is not fiqhi related? Like a dua. Someone says to you, dua kumail, and please don't misunderstand me. Don't say Sheikh Zaid is weak, okay? I'm giving an example. Someone says dua kumail is weak. Okay. But I'm reading the contents. Allahumma inni as'aluka, Allahumma this, Allahumma that. What's the problem? Even if you were to go to that extreme, and this is important, by the way, because there could be some supplications and ad'iyah that we have received attributed to Ahlul Bayt that some might not see it to be 100% authentic. But there is an area of leniency because I am using other words attributed to a ma'soom, whether truly or not, to express my communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What about areas of history? Can we be lenient in areas of history? No. We can't be lenient in areas of history. We have to be very, very strict when it comes to matters of tariq and history, right? Because it's not going to be easy for someone to, for example, rely completely on something and then all of a sudden say that it didn't happen this time, it happened on that time. There are some people who say that, for example, the month of Ramadan is not in this particular time, or the Mi'raj, right? Sunnis usually celebrate the Mi'raj on the 27th of Rajab. We usually make reference to that, on the, I think there's probably common narration in it being the 17th of Rajab in one of Ramadan. How about the dates of the martyrdoms and the births of some of our Imma alayhum salam? Some of them have one date, some of them have two dates. Even with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. One view is that he was born on the 12th of Rabi'ul Awwal, and that's even the view taken by Sheikh al-Kulaini in Al-Kafi. Another view, which is the stronger view, is on the 17th of Rabi'ul Awwal. So we have to be strict when it comes to history, but there are certain things, certain areas that carry a less level of significance, especially when it comes to certain things that don't have that level of a severity. It's not like, for example, saying that Ashura of Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not happen in Muharram, it happened in Sha'ban. I'm not going to accept that, right? But Imam as-Sajjad salamullahi alayhi being martyred on the 13th of Muharram or the 25th of Muharram or the 7th of Muharram, this is something that, can be negotiated. Inshallah, everyone's following what it is that I'm trying to say. A last example is akhlaqiyat, ethics and moral conduct, right? Do you need to have that level of strict scrutiny in the ahadith from Ahlul Bayt in regards to matters of akhlaq? The answer is no. For example, you have a hadith that says that al-kidhb, that lying, is this, and that's okay, good. If you refer back to our akhlaq books that have been written by our ulama, a lot of them make reference to Kanzul Ummal. Has anyone heard this book, Kanzul Ummal? Kanzul Ummal is a Sunni book. It's a Sunni akhlaq book where he compiled the ahadith, the akhlaqi, moral ahadith from the prophets. What's the problem? What's the issue? Right? I'm saying this because when it comes to something like this, in discussing the topic of authenticity, we have to have a broader mind. We have to be more tolerant in expanding our understanding so as to not become too sensational, too defensive, and feel that any kind of critical analysis is, of course, something insulting to the status of Amir al-Mu'mineen, for example, alayhi salam. What are the arguments against the authenticity of Nahj al-Balaghah? Again, we don't have any of our Shia ulama who argue against Nahj al-Balaghah. Yes, there are some who might question some of the khutbahs. There are some who might reject some of the khutbahs. But as a whole, it is definitely the most revered book after the Holy Quran. The first argument is that there is around about 250 or more years between Sayyid al-Radhi and those who lived during the era of Imam Ali. And Sayyid al-Radhi has not mentioned any of the chains of the narrators of any of these things. How could there be that level of accuracy from a Sayyid al-Radhi, right? When it comes to a 10, 15, for example, page khutbah of Imam Ali. Did this person have computer photo, what do they call it? Photographical, what do they say? Memory? Photo memory, what do they say? Photographic memory. Thank you. Is that how it was? That he was able to, memorize every single word with every single haraka, and the words that Imam Ali was using were not normal common words that usual Arabs said. They were of a high caliber, right? So number two is that they didn't. There are some khutbahs that don't have any trace before a Sharif al-Radhi. Number three is that this is not the custom of Imam Ali to criticize, to curse, to say bad things about the Khulafa. Imam Ali alayhi salam was a peaceful person. He was a caring person. He liked the Khulafa. He didn't have any problem with the Khulafa. He didn't fight against the Khulafa. Why are you Shia saying that Imam Ali said this and Imam Ali said that? This is not the akhlaq of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali says, do not be cursers, do not be swearers. And now you are attributing this to Imam Ali in him cursing and him saying this about Muawiyah and that about so and so, right? Those who were very, very strong in rejecting Nahj al-Balaghah are al-Dhahabi and Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. They're famous Sunni ulama. And subhanallah, this is a very, very, very big concern that Sunni ulama have, which is why they have dedicated a lot of work in breaking the sanctity of Nahj al-Balaghah. They have a website. There's a website called www.nahjul-balagha. You have to be careful, my brothers and sisters, when you want to do reading or researching and you come across a site that says Al-Shia or Imam Ali or Nahj al-Balagha, you have to make sure that you know where this is coming from, who is the person behind it, the organization behind it, right? Who would know that this is not something from Wahhabi, Salafi, anti-Shia source? And by the name, it looks Shi'i, doesn't it? When you look at the name, you say, okay, this is a Shi'i website, nahjulbalagha.net, but it isn't. So here they have a lot of material. Most of it is copy paste, where speaks about there's no chain, and also none of this can be found anywhere else. Here there is another criticism against Nahj al-Balagha, where it says that Imam Ali salamullahi alayh uses in Nahj al-Balagha, there's language used in Nahj al-Balagha that were not, this language was not commonly used among the Arabs at that time. They were foreign words. They were non-Arabic words, and it was that, and they exist in Nahj al-Balagha. And this is proof, this is evidence that Nahj al-Balagha or the khutbahs and letters were not written during the time of Imam Ali. Of course, you all know that even in the Holy Quran, there are studies made of the non-Arabic words that exist in the Holy Quran. And we also know that even during the first century, there were many, many changes that happened with the expansion of the borders of the Muslim world that were very different during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. An example for this is that during the time of the Holy Prophet, Greater Persia had not yet been conquered by the Muslims. And then during the time of the second Khalifa, it was. So this is a very weak argument where these terms were not used just because they were not used by others. There are many words that Imam Ali alayhi salam uses in Nahj al-Balaghah that you would not see anywhere else. And this theory is given by someone by the name of Mahmoud Shakir. Now, you Shia say that that this is all Nahj al-Balagha written by this and written that. Imam Ali, you can't say that Nahj al-Balagha is authentic because you Shia hate Umar. You Shia don't like Umar, but Imam Ali likes Umar. So this is a catch-22 situation. If you say that Nahj al-Balagha is authentic, then that means Imam Ali likes Umar. If you say that Imam Ali does not like Umar, then you have to reject Nahj al-Balagha, or at least a lot of parts of Nahj al-Balagha, right? This is where in khutbah number 226, Imam Ali alayhi salam apparently praises someone by the name of Fulan. Who knows what Fulan means? Fulan, when in Arabic they say Fulan, what does it mean? Anyone knows? Yeah, so and so, so and so. When you say Fulan, yani so and so, you don't want to mention their name. So here, did in the khutbah, please read the English, by the way, while am I on the right? Yes. Read the English while I am giving the explanation. Did Imam Ali say Fulan or did Imam Ali use the name? The famous commentator on Nahj al-Balagha, Ibn Abi al-Hadid, he says Fulan means Umar ibn al-Khattab. It is Umar that Imam Ali is referring to, praising Umar when he passed away, right? Ibn Abi al-Hadid, who's the most renowned commentator on Nahj al-Balagha, of course, he must have some kind of reference and evidence for this, right? Here we can see that there are many counter arguments against this claim that Fulan is in reference to Umar, because there are earlier references and manuscripts that don't have the name there but have the name Malik in reference to Malikul Ashtar Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayh. Another saying is, why are you making such a very, very broad claim that this is in reference to Umar ibn al-Khattab? It could be in reference to another Umar. Umar was a very, very popular, common name. Even one of the children of Imam Ali alayhi salam, his name was Umar, very common. It was a very common name at that time. We have many of our Shi'i companions whose names were Umar and Uthman and even Yazid, right? It was later on that these became very detested names with the evolving of society, which is very, very normal. So this argument again has many flaws in it, and cannot be accepted. Another person who's very famous in criticizing, please give me another 5 minutes and I'll finish, inshallah. Another person who's very famous in criticizing Nahj al-Balaghah, and his criticisms are very poisoned criticisms because it shows an underlying problem that he had, and that was hate for Imam Ali alayhi salam, Ibn Khalakan, where he claims that even Sayyid al-Murtada, right, had an issue with the authenticity of um, Nahj al-Balagha, right? And it was him that did it, and then it was Sayyid Radhi and all this, you know, um, fable, fantasy, Bollywood story that this person had compiled. Arguments for authenticity. Number one is scholars of literature, when they analyze poetry or when they analyze a piece of literature, like some poem by a poet or a writing by Shakespeare, one of the things that they are well aware of is the unique style of this poet, the unique style of this writer. And there is a pattern in the style of this person. One of the ways of arguing in favor of the authenticity of most of Nahj al-Balagha is the style of writing that is very, very synchronized. There is a common pattern in the style of writing that you can see in Nahj al-Balagha, and that is evidence that it is all coming from the one author, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Right? Another thing is, if there is something that is doubted, one way of proving its authenticity or not is by going back to the style of writing and comparing one with another. Another issue is that in the writings, in the other writings of Al-Sharif al-Radhi, he makes references to Nahj al-Balagha, which means that it was him that wrote it and not anyone else. And of course, that is a very important way of defining attribution to the author. Now, I would very confidently say that if this was a book called Nahj al-Balagha, written by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, would there be any problems? No problems whatsoever. They would say Abu Sufyan, Muawiyah, you know, they are the founders of theoretical politics. They are the founders of literature and Arabic, and they did this and they did groundbreaking work in Arabic literature and balagha and things like that. There would be absolutely no problem whatsoever. And that's why I said there is an underlying problem that these scholars, unfortunately, pseudo scholars have, and it is not in the authenticity or non-authenticity of Nahj al-Balagha. It is in who it is attributed to, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and they find this very, very difficult for them to swallow. Very quickly, Sheikh Muhammad Jawad Mughniya, one of the very famous contemporary Lebanese ulama, he says, after extensive research, I do not find any justified doubts in attributing Nahj al-Balaghah in its contents to Imam Ali alayhi salam. However, as far as who compiled it, indeed it was al-Sharif al-Radhi. Ibn Abil Hadid, again, the Mu'tazili. A lot of Sunni scholars don't believe that he's Mu'tazili. They believe he is Shi'i because he was a very, very, very fair, unbiased person. He says a lot of people make false accusations against Nahj al-Balaghah, and they say that this is impossible to be attributed, these sermons and things to be attributed to Imam Ali. But then he says, no way, that is this in the quality of the language that exists can be in any way attributed to anyone else other than Imam Ali alayhi salam. The famous Indian scholar Sayyid Wahid Akhtar, he writes, no one among the ulama of who were contemporary to al-Sharif al-Radhi, whether Sunni or Shia, for another 200 or 250 years after Sayyid al-Radhi, cast any doubts on Nahj al-Balaghah and its authenticity. Just going to rush. This is another view of another scholar where it says people are of the view that Nahj al-Balaghah in its own writing is his own writing, yani the writing of al-Sharif al-Radhi. But I heard my teacher, Ibn Taymiyyah. Who's Ibn Taymiyyah? Well, we all know who Ibn Taymiyyah is. But I heard my teacher Ibn Taymiyyah say, Nahj al-Balaghah is not the product of a Sayyid al-Radhi. What is in this book are the utterances of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And whatever is known from in being from Sharif al-Radhi, Sayyid al-Radhi, of course, in its commentaries, is known. I wanted to add this as well, and this is a way of encouraging our sisters to also focus on religious studies, right? We have a strong heritage, my sisters, in female ulama who were narrators. And one example of this is one of the primary narrators of Nahj al-Balaghah was the niece of Sayyid al-Radhi, the daughter of Alam al-Huda, Sayyid al-Murtada. That's very, very important as well. And finally, when it came to the criticism of saying that Imam Ali was very good, very peaceful, very, fine and cool with the Sahaba and with the Khulafa. He had no problem, right? He would, visit them and they would visit him and everything else, right? And you Shia are accusing and attacking the Sahaba, and Imam Ali would never do that. Okay. The Prophet did it. The Prophet did it. The Prophet said, you don't know what these companions are going to do after me. They are going to wreak havoc. They're going to create chaos in the Muslim Ummah. And this is this hadith from Sahih Bukhari, from the most trustworthy person on earth, Abu Hurairah, where he says that the Holy Prophet ﷺ says that my people from my ummah will come to me on Judgment Day, right? And I'm going to say, where are my companions? Ashabi, ashabi, where are my companions? And they're going to say, wait a second, these are your companions. And then the Holy Prophet will reply, إِنَّكَ لَا تَعْلَمْ. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa is going to say to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to say back, إِنَّكَ لَا تَعْلَمْ. You don't know what these people have done after you, right? إِنَّهُمْ ارْتَدُّوا على أدبارهم القهقري. Irtidad basically means leaving Islam. Is that worse than what exists in Nahj al-Balaghah in reference to the Sahaba? This is definitely more harsh and exists in al-Bukhari. So if you have a problem with what is in Nahj al-Balaghah, then how are you going to solve these narrations that speak and criticize very aggressively against the companions? وغفر الله لنا ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.